Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, as you guys can see, I already got the Tamiya Aqroshot in the mail. I got it yesterday. It took 2 days to get it from Hub Hobby. Again, I want to give a big shout out to Adam or Adam's Playground for pointing out the deal on this. I wasn't familiar with this truck, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I gotta have it. I was so glad that I got the very last one that appeared to be in stock, and it went out of stock after I ordered mine. This thing just looks fantastic. So I mentioned in the channel update video that was posted prior to this that I decided on some upgrades. I don't have all the parts yet, so I may start building this soon if the parts don't get here soon. They're supposed to be here in like the next week, but I wanted to go ahead and get started on it as soon as I can, but I might wait for the parts to come in the mail, so I just haven't decided on that. But I ordered some upgrade parts that I want to put on into it. But as you can see, I got a few things here. I got some of the 3 different colors of Tamiya brand spray paints that are used for this build. Because I think I'm just gonna stick with, the stock look of this truck. I really like the way this looks. So it's a smoke for the windows, and then there's a gunmetal color that goes on most of the body, and then a black that also goes on other parts of the body. So that looks, I think it's gonna look really good to do that. And then I got some of the Fast Eddie's ball bearings that have come in the mail. So those are going to be going in there because unfortunately this kit comes with those plastic bushings, and save yourself some trouble. If you get these kits and they don't come with ball bearings, some do, some don't. Years ago they almost never came with ball bearings except for the highest end models. Now it's a little more forgiving. Get yourself ball bearings. These are sealed. That means no dirt's going to get in there. You have to take them out and clean them like you would your standard ball bearings. And because the plastic bushings, they work okay for a little while, but they gum up and your car just won't run as long, and it won't, if you care about top speed, the car's not going to be as fast with those plastic bushings inside this kit. But as you can see, this thing just looks so awesome. And up here on the side, you've got this little sticker up here. I don't know if you're going to see it or not, but it does mention that it has oil-filled shocks in this kit. And I believe it says oil-filled shocks in the ESC, I think. Oh no, it talks about the motor. Oil-filled shocks, and then it has that torque-tuned Mabuchi 540 Tamiya torque-tuned motor in this. So I'm going to go with that brushless that I mentioned in the channel update, a 3600 kV 60 amp ESC receiver. I always want to say receiver because I do so much of these cars that have the ESC receiver combo. The ESC and motor 60 amp and 3600 kV motor combo, very, very inexpensive. We'll see how it does. If I get clogging or any weird issues and it doesn't run great, then I'll go ahead and swap it back into, probably just go back to the brush system on it. Because I've had good luck with these cheap brushless ones just for backyard bashing. But the Sand Viper here, this one would clog and hesitant to go. It's the only one that I've had any troubles with on these cheap systems. I'm still waiting on, so I'm waiting on that, and I'm waiting on the steering servo. I got a more expensive one. I like the look of it, and it looks like a pretty good servo. And then it's all off eBay, so take it for what it will. But I'm waiting on those 2 things to show up. So once they do, we get the paints and the ball bearings, and we'll get this thing building it. It'll take me a few weeks, so don't expect to see this car on the channel immediately. With the family stuff and other work and stuff that I do, I can't devote a lot of time to building. So when I was building these other ones, I would spend maybe an hour every evening whenever I had the time. It wasn't every night, but most nights, just doing a little building. So it'll take me several weeks. It may be a month before you see this on the channel before I get all done and get it all painted and ready to go. I'm not going to do a build guide on it. That's a lot of work. But I will obviously get back when this is done and show you guys how it all looks. So what we're gonna do now, let's go ahead and let's unbox this thing so you guys can see what's inside this kit. So I'll be right back. Okay, let's go ahead and get the box open and see what this kit looks like. Now, this is one of those smaller boxes. It has just a photograph in the front compared to the classic Tamiya kits that have the artwork and it's hand drawn. I love those. The more newer kits like this, they often go with just a bit of a more modern design, but I'm a big fan of the classic ones. So that's one thing that I do love about the Tamiya kits, the older ones compared to the newer ones, and the boxes are also a lot bigger. But anyway, enough to talk about that. Let's go ahead and get the plastic pulled off here. Went ahead and cut it so we had it ready to go. Hopefully this will all show up just fine in the camera, but the tripod is up as high as it'll go. So if there's anything you have trouble seeing here, guys, I apologize. This is kind of high as I can get it. I also mentioned it has that Hobby Wing 1060 60 amp brushed ESC in this, which again I might use if I have trouble with the brushless system that I did order. And here is some of the stuff. We got a little box here and the big giant part bag. And here is the body. Obviously this is going to have to be cleaned off. I usually recommend you kind of wash it and make sure it's clean before you do spray paint the underside. And then always the fun task of cutting out the body, which is probably my least fun part of the whole build. It is so difficult. You practically cut yourself on the sharp edges of the Lexan when you're cutting it. It's just, you know, they have some specialized tools and scissors I should get. You know, it is better than just using your scissors in your home, but I never did get any of those, so something to keep in mind. So inside the big main bag here, we got all your different part bags in here. Just so much stuff. I'm probably not going to open all this and pour it out because this is just like all the other kits. You got all your little bags with your different screws, your CD, AB, all the different. You see the springs for the shocks in here, and then different plastic pieces in here, and the shock. You know, the whole shock kit is here, not just the springs. And here is that torque tuned Mabuchi RS 540 motor. I've gotten a ton of these 540s are included in almost every kit that I've ever bought. I think the Dyna Blaster, when I bought it, I kind of want to think it didn't come with any motor at all, which they sometimes do in the highest end kits. I've actually never had one of the torque or either the torque or sport tuned motors. So that's kind of interesting, just slightly modified version of the standard Mabuchi motors they've been using on these kits, you know, since the early 80s at least. Yeah, and then we got, here's our tires. I really like the way these tires look, and they're gonna look really nice on this. You have your white wheels, which of course, that's something that could be dyed. I'd have to look into that. If you spray paint this, it's just gonna chip off as soon as it would look bad. So I'm just gonna keep them white because that's the way they do it on the front of the box. And to me, they never ever have wheels that they recommend you change the color. They'll be the right color for the kit, assuming you use the same paint scheme out of the box. Here are some of the internal the gearbox. This is just a two-wheel drive kit, so you just have the gears here, and these look like these are. I'm thinking these are probably like the, what is it, 48 pitch? I'm trying to remember what that is. The biggest used to be, I know, the 32. So these are not as big of teeth on this. Let's see what, I have to open this up and get my knife. Let's see what's in this little box here. If I was wrong on that, on the teeth pitch thing there and the number, I apologize. Sometimes I'm trying to remember that by memory. Here is that ESC. Interesting, they now put, I didn't know that this was what it was because the other few kits I got, it's wrapped in bubble wrap inside like a pink bag, and I didn't know that this is just that same ESC. Again, this is for the brushed motor that they include. And again, I'm gonna hold on to this. I have several more of these, so I'm gonna have several, like at least 3 of these now, assuming that I don't use this one in the kit. And here's some more of the larger plastic pieces. You see some of the rear A arms. Sort of the banging door there. That was my daughter coming in and out of the room because she didn't know I was filming. Here is some of the rear, the gearbox and the mount for the motor there. Unfortunately, the way this design on this chassis on this DT03 is you've got the motor is sort of more enclosed, so you don't have room to really put like a cooling fin or a cooling fan on the motor. I had a red aluminum cooling fin with a black motor little cooling fan. I was trying to spit it out on top of the motor, and I had that in my cart, and then I realized when I went and looked at the manual online, there was gonna be no room to attach that to the motor in this kit. So I was kind of fortunate because I like to put coolant on those brushless motors whenever you can. Here are some of the hubs here. And here's some of the other pieces in the kit. to the chassis and such. Again, I don't know exactly what each part is. I'm looking at this the same way you guys are. Here's some more of the A-arms. This looks like some of the mounts for the body, I believe. And yeah, here's some of the dog bone cups. This is actually pretty cool. With the metal and into this. I've never seen that before. That's pretty cool. And here are a slightly different type of dog bone. Unfortunately, these are not metal. They are a really hard plastic with the part metal, but they're not entirely metal. A lot of them do use a metal, an entire metal cup for the dog bone, but this actually doesn't have that. But I don't think this is going to be a problem. These are not super long. They feel pretty good. So I'm sure you could upgrade these to a full metal dog bone kit if you wanted to, but I think this will be just fine for this kit. I'm not too worried. Again, some people do complain, that the Tamiya, they use the cheaper plastics. This stuff's been around a long time. They're a modeling company, so they've got their plastics in their factory, to use what they use with their other stuff. So they stick with these type of plastics. And they aren't the strongest per se, but they usually do just fine as long as you don't go crazy with your speed and stuff, and you hit something, you're going to obviously break something, but that can happen to any of the cars. Here's the your antenna straw for your antenna. A lot of these cars now in the 2.4 gigahertz, I just lay the antenna inside, but I may actually insert it out of the top and just cut this down so it's not so high, because I think it kind of looks cool. I'm debating on that. I like when they have the little black rubber boot on the top, which I have some of those. I don't know if they include that or not, so I'll have to think about that. Then we have our decal sheet here in the bottom. There's all of our decals. The nice Aqroshot branding, and then the DT03T chassis there, telling you all your information. And there's some silver in here too, some other decals that go on there. And I believe this is the masking that you cut out and adhere in the inside when you're painting to not paint the windows, and then you come back in it, and in the end I think you paint the windows smoke colored if you want to. And then since it's the last step, the other paint's already been applied, so the smoke won't show through the other paint that's already been applied. So that's just a way you keep the other paints off the window. And some of the other inserts, and then here you got the Aqroshot manual. Again, this manual, you can see how the motor's almost fully enclosed there. But yeah, this manual should be different than the online one. Let's see if I can find the shocks, because they have a PDF for the manual on the Tamiya website, and it's a little bit different. It must be a different version they sold or before they decided to upgrade some of the components, because it just had the friction shocks. I'm trying to see if I could find the shock insulator here, and yeah, this one shows the oil-filled shocks, and I believe it does. Sometimes if they don't, that looks like a friction shock up here. We'll have to look more closely, because they may have an insert or something telling you, because they have to tell you how to do the oil ones. But it says it includes oil-filled shocks, so I'm hoping that something didn't get changed in there. What it may have is an insert inside the actual shocks telling you to follow this instead, because this does look just like the online manual. So that's interesting. I may have to actually open that up and take a quick look at that, because that doesn't you can see the oil. Here's the oil, so these are oil filled shocks. So here's the damper set instruction manual. Look, it does tell you how to put them together. So yep, my intuition there was right. The instruction manual they've kept the same. When you go to pull the parts for the shocks out of here, you'll see the instruction manual and it'll say, hey, do this instead, So yeah, that's much better. Friction shocks, they can be okay at times, but depending on what springs they use and all that, but I'm not a fan of friction shocks most of the time. So you want to try to avoid those when you can. The Tamiya oil-filled shocks are just fine. They're not the greatest, but it's all come down to, you know, the weight of the oil and the tints, how tints the springs they use. They have different color springs and oils you can buy, but we'll see how it goes. I got the stock shocks on the Blitzer Beetle and the Sand Viper, and they're just fine. The shocks that come with the Top Force Evo are a metal, and they're really nice shocks. It'd be nice if they included those in these kits, but those are a lot more expensive for them to produce and to mold these plastic ones. But we'll see how they go. You can put spacers in on their shocks. They don't have the adjustable piece you screw down, so do keep that in mind, that you have to put some spacers in. So I saw a set of shocks. They weren't Tamiya brand, but they were a name brand. They were sold on eBay. They were branded under being sold for the Aqroshot. Of course, the Aqroshot shocks are standard size that are used on the other cars, so it's not just the Aqroshot. But I'm debating possibly picking those up and putting them on here, but I'm probably going to wait and see how I feel the stock shocks are. But then again, if I have some pre-assembled ones, I love building stuff, but I'm not a huge fan of putting the shocks together. So I've thought about ordering those, but my fear is I ordered those ones for the HBX 16890A that looked really nice, and they're total crap. But these look like a decent brand, but I do worry about buying some shocks and then they end up not being very good, and I end up having to go back to the plastic shocks. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. That wraps up the little overview and unboxing of the Tamiya Aqroshot. So I hope you enjoy it and stick around. Obviously, I'll be bringing this to the channel and show you guys the complete build and do a run review on it and let you see how it does do on that brushless system, assuming that I stick with it, which I'm sure I will, at least for the first video. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Click that bell, that way you're notified every time I do upload a new video. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.
The power of the dark side.